Welcome everyone to another video of answer writing program by Vajiram and Ravi, where you are going to write for GS4 for this month, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, 12 case studies. You can attempt those questions at vajiramis.com and you can check out the model answers and video discussion over here on YouTube channel. Just go to vajiramis.com. You can see the mains daily answer section over here. You can also check out the announcement and the schedule for the updates. Go to the mains daily answer section, go to the respective month. You can check out all the questions over here, select the question and upload your file to maintain the discipline. For today's answer writing program, we are going to see 3 questions. 2 questions are from GS4 social psychology, attitude and aptitude and emotional intelligence. These are the syllabus aspects we are going to cover for 2 questions, and 1 question will be from current affair. Now let us check out the questions. The very first question is on accountability, integrity and transparency. We'll be looking at how they are crucial for the functioning of civil services and what ethical frameworks are required to implement the same. The second question is about emotional intelligence. We'll see how emotional intelligence is heightened awareness of one's own and others' emotion, and we'll also understand how it can help with respect to supporting a person who have mental health disorder. And the third question is current affair question. Over here, we're going to check out the question on air pollution, air quality. We have recently witnessed how rising air pollution led to deteriorating condition of the environment in Delhi. So we'll check out the reasons and impact of rising air pollution in Delhi. So let's move to the first question. The first question: accountability, integrity and transparency are crucial for the functioning of civil service. What ethical frameworks should be implemented in order to achieve these goals? In this question, in the introduction part, you can either define those terms or you can talk about the significance of the same. As we have already understood, they are crucial for the functioning of civil services. They are kind of bedrock for good governance. So that is something which you can deal in the introduction. In the body aspect, you can talk about ethical frameworks which can help implement those valuable foundational values. And in the conclusion, you can talk about how exactly you can apply those learning for civil services, as well as you can also talk about the significance of other values, etc. So that is something you can with which you can frame the question, frame the answer. So let us start with the introduction. You can define, you can also talk about the significance. You can define accountability as a quality of state of being accountable, where a person willingnessly or through an obligation accepts responsibility for one's action. You can talk about integrity is firm adherence to a code of especially moral values, as in incorruptibility. You can also talk about how it is a quality of a state of being complete or undividedness. That's integrity. You can talk about transparency, which is quality of state of being transparent. So these are the definition aspect. You can talk about significance, as accountability refers to the sense of responsibility. Integrity refers to making sure whatever morals, values that an individual is having is making sure they're applying the same in their profession. And transparency refers to the fact there is no hiding any kind of interest, and thus they are clear with respect to their goal. So that is something which you can inculcate in the significance aspect and how it's very much necessary for civil services, because they have to directly deal with public welfare, and thus these are the foundational value for civil services. Now let us see in the body. You have only one heading, which is ethical framework required to achieve accountability, integrity and transparency. Over here you can list down different frameworks, as in how you are going to achieve those values, how aspect we can deal through frameworks. The very first, you can talk about how code of ethics can act as bedrock with respect to making sure we have standard operating procedures which can align with respect to realizing accountability, integrity and transparency. You can talk about even policies and procedures can become ethical framework, such as Public Service Delivery Act. Through those kind of legislation, a civil servant may understand how they can ensure these foundational values are implemented so that good governance is realized. Next is training and education. We have different training modules with us. We have different institutions like DOPT, where civil servant can get exhaustive training. Over here, we can also call this as capacity building, where their capacity to understand in a system how can they implement accountability, ensure the process is transparent, and also they can align their values with the professional demanded value. Next is monitoring and review. Through constant monitoring of the performance of civil servants, we can talk about online performance monitoring system. You can talk about how feedback mechanism can be in place so that a civil servant can, through periodic review, understand how they are aligning those values with respect to the demand of the job. Next is transparency and accessibility. Through different mechanisms like RTI Act, a civil servant can also understand how the transparency as well as the other two foundational values are in place. The next is Whistleblower Protection Act. A third person, like a person from outside, can also understand how, if there is any issues within the system, are realized, and any kind of misplacement of this foundational value is tackled. So those are the ethical frameworks through which civil services can achieve accountability, integrity and transparency. So this is something you can write in the body aspects. You can also give example as you have seen over here. You can also give examples through the people who have helped with respect to realization of those frameworks. In the conclusion, you can talk about learnings for civil services. You can talk about how those foundational value, accountability, integrity and transparency are crucial for functioning of the civil services. They are kind of bedrock, and a civil servant must be well aware of those values. Apart from that, you can also say that how other foundational values such as objectivity, leadership, sense of possibility, those are something which are also crucial for civil servants to help with respect to realization of good governance. So that is something you will write in the conclusion of question number 1. Let us check out the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. So in the introduction, you can define those values as well as you can talk about the significance of those values for civil services. Then in the framework, you can list down different ethical framework. These are basically rubrics, and those rubrics must have certain kind of examples to support the ideas, and thus you can give 5 to 6 rubrics as in ethical frameworks. And in the end, you can talk about good governance, you can talk about citizen-centric administration, as well as you can talk about different other foundational values which are also required for civil services. So that is there for question number 1. Let's move on to question number 2. Let's read the question number 2 together. Emotional intelligence is a heightened awareness of one's own and others' emotion. In this context, discuss how emotional intelligence can support a person to handle mental health disorders. Now this question is basically applied emotional intelligence. You have to apply the understanding, the importance, the significance of emotional intelligence for specific issue which is mental health disorder. You can structure the answer as in the introduction, you can define emotional intelligence, or you can talk about the data of mental health in India so that you can apply the learnings of EI for solving the issue of mental health. So that is something in the introduction. In the body, you can divide into 2 headings. First heading, you can tackle how emotional intelligence is heightened awareness of one's own and others' emotion. In the second heading, you can talk about how exactly you can apply the aspects of emotional intelligence to handle mental health disorder. And in the conclusion, you can talk about how a civil servant can learn through application of emotional intelligence in general. So that is the structuring of the answer. Now let's see the introduction. You can define emotional intelligence as in one's own awareness and how to regulate your emotions as well as monitor and apply learning to ensure you are individually as well as socially aware of the scenarios. You can also talk about mental health. We do understand that we have a mental health survey report in 2015-16. I do understand it's quite old, but you can still apply those data points to give a brief idea of the mental health in India. As per the data points, we have understanding that 2.7% of Indian population faces with respect to depressive disorders. Now that's a huge number. You do have to understand, and that's why EI plays very important role with respect to tackling the mental health disorder. Now let's go to the body. The first heading we are going to deal is how emotional intelligence is heightened awareness of one's own and others' emotion. You can list down 4 points over here. You can talk about how emotional intelligence helps with respect to self-awareness, as you will be able to regulate, monitor your emotions, how you can translate that emotional intelligence into empathy as well, understanding and feeling other person's problems so that you can connect with them in a better way. It also helps with respect to inner motivation. So this is one's own emotion, right? We are talking about over here. You can talk about how EI helps with respect to understanding your purpose and thus gives you the right direction for motivation. You can also talk about how it's very essential for social skill, as in understanding other people's emotion. You can link the same with empathy. When you empathize with a person, you are starting a ripple effect where you are able to understand other person's feeling and so on. This can again, going forward, translate into compassion, right? As in making sure your empathy is into action mode, helping other people, compassion. So thus, EI is heightened awareness of one's own and others' emotion. Now, this is all you can encompass in the heading 1. You can also substantiate the same with respect to certain examples, as in for social skill, you can talk about certain civil servants who have ensured that whenever they are at field work on the ground, they understand the ground reality, they interact with the people. We have certain examples where civil servants have learned tribal language when they are placed in tribal areas. So that is the kind of power of emotional intelligence you can encompass in your examples of the body in heading 1. Now let's move to the heading 2. In heading 2, you can cater the next demand, which is how EI as a tool can help with respect to supporting a person with mental health disorder. Over here, you can talk about how it can help with respect to effecting counseling. We talked about empathy. Exactly, that is how we can apply that learning over here. A counselor who have good EI can understand the person who has mental health disorder and thus their counseling will be more effective. Second, again, empathy you are connecting over here. You can understand that how empathy refers to understanding other person's feeling and thus making sure they can also realize certain kind of experiences that a person with mental health disorder is facing. Second is emotion regulation. Now, there might be possible that a person with mental health disorder is facing certain kind of conflict with respect to resolution of their emotions. Now, a person who is very much aware of the emotional intelligence of their own, they can help them with respect to how to navigate their emotions and resolve their conflicts. Also, EI helps with respect to breaking down social stigma. We have seen that how people who have mental health disorder are discriminated. There are certain casual stereotyping in the society because of which they face stigma. Now, an individual with heightened emotional intelligence can definitely help other person realize that this issue is not to be stereotyped or stigmatized, rather it needs to be solved in such a way that compassion is the core of it. And lastly, overcoming bullying impact, as in again we are talking about how people discriminate, how they bully people with mental health disorder, and thus they can also help with respect to overcoming bully impact. So that is something in the heading 2 you can write. Now coming to the conclusion aspect, over here you can talk about way ahead, how going ahead government, there are certain policies with respect to mental health must be implemented, as well as there should be capacity building of the civil services, there should be sensitization of the masses so that they can understand the issue of mental health disorder and solve this issue with keeping emotional intelligence as the core and apex tool. So that is something you can write in question number 2. Let's see the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. In the introduction, you can define EI, you can talk about mental health data points as well. In the heading 1, you can talk about EI as a heightened awareness of one's own and others' emotion. You can list down all the pillars of emotional intelligence and give certain examples to substantiate the same. In heading 2, you can talk about how EI is a tool to support a person with mental health disorder. You can talk about different ways through which that support can be given and you can give certain example. You can see how overcoming bullying impact. We have an example of Naomi Osaka. So that is also something you can encompass over here. And in the end, you can talk about way forward. You can talk about application. You can talk about how civil servant can apply the same for their day-to-day working. So that is there for question number 2. Now let's move to question number 3, which is current affair based question. Let's read the question together. Delhi NCR's air quality is often a thick glaze of concern as the battle against pollution continues in the heart of India's capital region. In light of the statement, mention the reasons and impact of rising air pollution in Delhi NCR. So this question is basically coming from the current affair question. We recently witnessed high air pollution data points where we are looking at historic highs which we have never faced before, and this is something which is coming pre-Diwali. So post Diwali the scenario might deteriorate as well. So that is something you can write in the introduction about the recent rise. You can talk about AQI points. That is something you can inculcate in the introduction. In the body, the specific demand which we have to cater is the reason, which will be our heading 1 for the body, and the impact, which is going to be the heading 2 of the body. And in the conclusion, you can talk about going ahead, way ahead as in suggestions. So let's start. So in the introduction, you can talk about the quotes with respect to AQI level. You can talk about how they are historic. You can also talk about it's pre-Diwali, which is something, an anomaly. Post-Diwali, most of the time we have witnessed a certain kind of high rise in AQI. Let's go to the heading 1 of the body, where we are going to tackle the reasons for rise in air pollution. The very first reason that have been recurringly backed by substantial data point is stubble burning in nearby regions. We have witnessed a rise in stubble burning in nearby regions such as Haryana, Punjab, and because of that kind of air pollution and coupled with wind direction, as you can see during the month of October, November, we have certain wind direction that comes towards Delhi, and because of that kind of holistic impact, the air pollution in Delhi rises. We also have construction, operation and open waste incineration within the city. Now that kind of activities can also augment the intensity of air pollution for Delhi. And lastly, we have transportation and industrial pollution. Transportation, we are talking about the logistic part. As Delhi is the national capital region, we do have multiple trade points over here, and because of that, the transportation also plays very crucial role with respect to rise in air pollution. And also industry pollution, industrial air pollution is also there. So these are the specific reasons for rise in air pollution in Delhi. Now let's move to the heading 2, which is going to be the impact of air pollution. The first is health effect. We have seen rise for short term with respect to chest, lungs issues, and with respect to long term, we have seen cardiovascular disease as well as instances of cancer. So the health effects are very crucial to understand, and thus that air pollution which we are facing must be resolved. Second is environmental impact. The health impact which we are talking about is not just for humans. The entire environment faces that kind of pressure from animals to the plants. Every possible living entity is feeling the issue of air pollution. The next is visibility and traffic safety. Because of air pollution, we are witnessing rising instance of smoke, and because of smoke, the issue of visibility and traffic safety arises. Next is social inequality. Now, as we understand that people who can afford air pollution purifiers, they can definitely bypass the effect of air pollution. However, people who belong to underprivileged section, they cannot afford certain kind of tools through which they can bypass that kind of impact. Thus, there is social inequality over here. Decline in tourism. Again, this will impact the economy of the entire region, as tourists will not be favorable with respect to coming to this region. So thus tourism. You can also mention about different points of economy, as in we talked about how industry is also one of the cause. So because of air pollution, there might be kind of pause with respect to the working of industry, and that will definitely impact the economy and thus other sections of the society. So that is the heading 2, impact of air pollution in the body, that you can write. Now let's go to the conclusion. Over here, you can talk about way ahead, how promoting EV is one of the primary solution to tackle with respect to the transportation and industrial air pollution. You can talk about stricter emission standard. We do understand that there are certain standards like Bharat Stage we are implementing right now that can also help with respect to minimizing the air pollution. You can talk about green building practices. Over here, we are trying to ensure that we are consciously consuming the energy, as well as ensuring that the entire infrastructure is such a way that there is balance with respect to the environment and development. Third is air quality monitoring and alerts. Now, air quality monitoring is something which helps with respect to early warning, and that can help us direct the future chart and understand how can we minimize the contribution with respect to air pollution. And lastly is urban green spaces. Over here we are talking about pockets of forest, pockets of park, so that the entire city can breathe when the certain instances of air pollution rises. So these are the kind of way ahead you can write in the conclusion. Also you can talk about recent current affair. You can talk about how Commission for Air Quality Management, they initiated the graded response action plan 4th stage. So this kind of news also you can inculcate in the conclusion to give a very holistic idea of your answer. So that is there for question number 3. Let us see the model answer and understand how can we inculcate the same in our answer writing practice. In the introduction, you can talk about the recent current affair, you can talk about the AQI, you can also give the number, and over here you can talk about the possible impact of air pollution in the region. You can talk about the reasons. Over here you can give keywords for each points and give substantiation of the same and back them with example to give a very holistic idea. You can give a keyword, you can write the substantiation in 2 lines, and in 1 line you give example. So in 3 lines you are sorted with 1 dimension. You must be giving kind of 8 dimensions for a 10 marker question, so that you can divide the same in your 2 headings as in 4 plus 4. So that is there for reason. You can talk about the impact. Again, you can give keyword, substantiation and your examples. This is something way forward you can write in the conclusion part, and thus at the end you can talk about certain suggestive measures as well as current affair that we talked about, graded response. So that is there for question number 3. You're writing for Vajiram and Ravi answer writing program. I hope you continue writing. Thank you so much.